Well, it's peony season, so everybody is buying in peonies, and we're inundated with emails and phone calls here asking us how do they get the peonies open. Now these ones are absolutely amazing, but I have already conditioned and treated these over the past few days. So today I want to give you a couple of tips how you can get your peonies nicely open. So normally when you purchase peonies, they're going to look something like what I have up here just to show you. They'd be like a kind of a really tight golf ball. And the problem is trying to get them open. So first of all, we go through a few of the regular day-to-day tips for treating and conditioning flowers. And I'd probably suggest get your notebook and pen ready and you can take these down. So the first thing, and this is really for all flowers, make sure your vase or the container you're going to store the flowers in, even if it's a bucket, is scrupulously clean. I often say to our students, if it's not clean enough to drink a cup of tea out of, it's definitely not clean enough for your flowers to drink water. So normally what we suggest is that we sterilise all our buckets. And we sterilise our buckets using domestic bleach diluted in water. And we would have a bucket of diluted water with bleach in it, and we would leave it in our buckets for approximately 5 to 15 minutes, and then we would empty it out. We don't rinse our bucket, and we definitely don't dry it out. We leave kind of like that small kind of like lining of diluted bleach and water in the end of the bucket. I do have a separate video on sterilising buckets, and you will find that on our YouTube channel, Kay's Flower School. When our bucket has been scrupulously sterilised, what we then do is we half fill it with clean water. If it's a vase, we'd probably go for 2/3, 3/4. Where with buckets, because they hold a lot more water, we normally go just over the halfway mark. At this stage, because there is already a residue of diluted bleach in the end of our bucket, it'll get rediluted again. And what we're now having is a small amount, a small taint of bleach in the water that the flowers are eventually going to drink. And believe it or not, fresh flowers absolutely adore this. The next thing I recommend is to put a measure of flower food into the water that the flowers are going to drink. Especially if your peonies are extremely tight, like the sample I showed you earlier. With flower food, it'll encourage your flowers to open up. But also there's lots of other advantages. It keeps your water nice and fresh. It keeps the pH value balanced in the water. It stops your water going stagnant, it stops it discolouring, and it stops bacteria growing. So I definitely recommend using flower food. And at the back of the sachet, I presume it'll be a sachet you will buy, the directions is wrote on the back. So add the required amount of flower food to the water that's now in your bucket and your containers. Next thing then, you have your flowers. So when your flowers arrive, whether it's from your flower shop or from your local wholesaler. If it's from a wholesaler, remember they've been out of water for quite a long time. If you're purchasing them from a flower shop, they probably have treated or conditioned them already. In saying that, you can always repeat the conditioning treatment. It'll do absolutely no harm to them. But I'm just going to assume you purchased them from a wholesaler. So the first thing that you have to do is remove any of the leaf that's below the waterline. So you can see here with our vase, there's no leaf at all below the water. If there's leaves in the water, that will cause bacteria to grow. It'll also then pollute the water, and your flowers then are going to drink the polluted water, and we don't want that to happen. The next thing is you need to cut at least 1 inch off the end of the flower stems on a 45-degree angle. The reason why we say a 45-degree angle, you open a bigger hole than if you cut straight across. When you cut a flower, it immediately starts to suck. I often say to our students, it's like if I put them into shock. If I punched you in the stomach, you'd go, ah! Well, that's exactly what happens to the flowers. So when you cut the flowers, they immediately suck and they immediately take in air or water. So hopefully in your case it's going to be water. So you will have your vase ready. It's pre-organised, it's been sterilised, it's filled with clean water, there's a taint of bleach in the water, and you've added flower food. And the fresher the water, the better, because the higher the oxygen levels in it. So you've removed the leaves, you've taken off a 1/2 inch off the end of the stem on a nice 45-degree angle, and you then place your flowers in clean water. Now the minimum amount of time that you would leave them in the water is 4 hours. But as I said, if you have taken these flowers or took a delivery from a wholesaler and maybe they've come direct from Holland, they could be out of water for 24 to 36 hours at this stage. So in that case, I would recommend give them at least 12 hours, as in overnight, in water until you're ready to use them. Now if some of your peonies arrive like our sample that we showed you earlier on, where they're like a golf ball, the problem is trying to get them open. So a couple of little tips for you. Like roses, you will have your guard petals. Now these guard petals are slightly released, okay, because this has been in water for a day or two. But when you get them originally from your wholesalers or from your direct from Holland, your supplier, you will find that your guard petals will be uptight around the peony head. If you actually pick off them guard petals, just pick them off with your fingers, you'll be amazed the difference that that will make to the flower. And even this peony, already you will see by me removing them guard petals, it will actually help to encourage them to open. Other little tips that you can do, because this one has slightly opened already, is you can blow into the centre of the flower. And again you can see the difference that's going to make to the flower. But chances are, if your flower is like the golf ball, your petals then are extremely tight up around the outside of the flower head. And the problem there is there's like a sticky sap holding all them petals tight together. I'll just see if I got another kind of smallish one. Okay, this one is, it's not fully blown yet. This is just to demonstrate. So normally when you're peony and it's really, really tight like a golf ball, and it's like the petals are nearly glued together with this sticky sap, what you need to do is release the sap. So what I would say to you is fill up a vase or a bucket with tepid water, okay? So yes, it's going to be a little bit warm. And you're going to place the flower head down into it. And for this demonstration, I'm just going to remove these leaves so you can see the stem, okay? So you're going to place your flower head that's extremely tight, that has all the petals stuck together, right? Place it down into the tepid water. And with your finger in your hand, you're actually going to swish it like that. A bit like a washing machine, okay? So what's happening, by swishing your peony head in the tepid water, it will release that glue that's around the outside. Then you will be able to take up your flower head and you can then remove the guard petals that I showed you on the previous flower. So you can pick them off. The easiest thing is use your fingers. And immediately you find when you pick them, even with this flower here, you can see it definitely encourages it to open. Again, you can use the little trick of blowing into the flower head. And see the difference that's going to make. Now you can repeat that treatment as often as needed. Again, if they're like the golf ball, you may have to recut the end, place it back in the water, leave it for an hour or two, remove it again, place it back down in fresh tepid water, okay? And again, you can do the little swish. Now like hydrangeas, peonies take in water through their actual petals. So when they're nicely blown like this and you're now trying to prolong the life of them, maybe you have a wedding coming up in a day or two and you'd like to hold these, the way, and keep them fresher that little bit longer. Using a vase or a bucket of cold, fresh water, there's no need for flower food to be in it. Again, what you can do is you can place the flower head and leave it submerged, a bit like hydrangeas, leave it submerged down in the cold water for 15 minutes. It won't do it any harm. What will happen is the petals will actually take in water and it will hydrate the petals. Then you can take it out of it, and I recommend when you remove it from the water, don't try to stand it up straight away, okay? Let it kind of drip dry because there's a lot of petals there. It'll be quite heavy with water, so let it drip dry, take it up, recut the end of your flowers, maybe take again a ½ inch, even 1 centimetre off the end of them, and then place them back down into your vase of cold water. Now I would recommend change the water every 3 to 5 days, especially if the weather is warm. And chances are, the season, peonies being in season, that way, end of May, June, July, August will be the months for them, but chances are the weather is going to be warm, so you will find your water will get polluted that little bit faster. Every time you change the water, remove any extra leaf that maybe has fallen off the stem, or that's maybe gone a little bit loose. And again, always recut the ends. The more often you recut the ends, the more water you get up into the stems. Now another little tip. For anybody who maybe is a florist, there is a chemical that you can buy in your wholesaler called Quick Dip. It's made by the company called Smithers Oasis. But the company Kreisel, who also do flower food, they also have their version of it. In some countries it's called Magic Dip, but here in Ireland we call it Quick Dip. And florists often describe it as a Viagra for flowers. In other words, it makes your roses and your geranies stand up straight. But what it's also great for is hydrating stems, or getting water up into the stems really fast, especially if your flower is a woody stemmed flower. So again, the directions will be on the bottle of Quick Dip. But normally I would use a very small container, and I would put about 3 centimetres of the Quick Dip chemical into the end of my small container. The reason why I'm saying a small container is that you're not wasting a lot of it. Where if you have a very large container, and again you put 3 centimetres in, you probably have used a quarter of the bottle, and then it's going to go in the bin, so it's quite expensive, because Quick Dip is expensive. What you can then do with your peonies, and by the way, this works for hydrangeas, roses, geranies. To be honest, it works for all flowers because it is a hydrating chemical, okay? But for flowers that drink a lot of water, like hydrangeas, the secret is in the name, hydrate, okay? And peonies that need a lot of water, there's lots of other flowers out there as well. I definitely recommend purchasing the Quick Dip, especially if you're planning on doing weddings. So anyway, back to it. When you have your peonies really, really tight, if you cut the ends, again, you know what I mean, 45-degree angle, take ½ an inch off the ends of them, and if you dip about 1 centimetre of the end of the stem into the Quick Dip for 1 second. Now it's really important that it's 1 second, okay? That's why it's called Quick Dip. It's basically in and out. And straight away, after you've dipped it into the Quick Dip solution, place it into your cold water, your vase or your container of clean water that has your flower food in it. What the Quick Dip does, it's like it opens up the cells at the bottom of the stem, works its way up, and it encourages the water to go up that stem, up to the flower head. And the great thing about the Quick Dip is you can repeat that process every 4 hours. So these are all these little tricks. If your peonies are extremely tight, you know the way I find is I do all these little tricks. I don't just depend on one, I try and do a little bit of everything. So whether it's swishing them in the tepid water, whether it's dipping them and submerging them in the cold water, cutting the ends every 4 hours, using the Quick Dip, and having obviously flower food in the water. Other natural occasions which help to encourage the flowers to open is having your room nice and warm. Now again, I know you say about the summer, but here in Ireland we get pretty cold summers as well. So if the weather is really cold, you know the way, or you've no sun, put heating on in the room. Now never ever ever place your flowers in front of heat, okay? So just have heating on in the room and have your flowers in the same room. And again, the heat in the room will encourage your flowers to open. Other things that encourage the flowers to open is natural light. So even though it may not be a sunny day outside, if you were to place your vase up high maybe on a table, presuming your window is high, place your flowers up on a table near the window. So any sort of natural light coming in the window, hopefully there might be a little bit of sun, that also will encourage your flowers to open. Another little trick that I often tell my students about is bananas. So bananas, as in ripe bananas. You know, bananas that are nearly black. Personally, I actually like ripe bananas when I'm eating them myself. But some people may be put off purchasing bananas when they're really, really ripe and they're black or they're spotty. But this is a great trick to get flowers open. Because basically what's happening is the ripe bananas are giving off a gas called ethylene gas. And ethylene gas makes flowers mature faster. So normally in a flower shop situation, we're saying remove all cases of ethylene gas out of your flower shop to prevent your flowers opening or maturing. But if you have a wedding on and your peonies are like the sample I showed you earlier on, you will try absolutely anything to get them open. And the ripe bananas work. So even if it's having your tight peonies in your vase and placing the ripe bananas around the end of the vase, I've often been really stuck and I've sellotaped the bananas onto the glass vase to get them up as close to the peony heads as close as possible. And the gas from your ripe bananas will definitely encourage your peony heads to open. We do have a blog on our website, Our website is flowerschoolireland.com. Pop over and click on the blog button. And we've lots of different top tips for treating and conditioning flowers, prolonging their life, or also for getting peonies open. I hope you enjoyed our tips. If you do have any comments, feel free to place them underneath. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'd love and appreciate if you gave us a thumbs up. And if you're watching this on social media, I'd really appreciate if you gave it a share. Thanks for watching, and for more great tips from Case Flower School, my name is Janette. Follow us, use the hashtag Case Flower School on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, and also YouTube. Thanks for watching.